3 up, 2 across. Tap that play button 3 times and walk through the archway into Dialogue Alley. Hello and welcome to Dialogue Alley, a podcast all about Harry Potter books, book translations, and all other things magical. I'm Melanie.
I'm Carly.
And I'm Erik.
And the 3 of us are Harry Potter translation collectors. We collect Harry Potter books from all over the world in all different colors and shapes and sizes. And we talk about all of those things on this podcast. We are in season 4 of this podcast, and this is our 15th episode of this season. And today we are going to be talking about Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets.
Yes, we are.
And you might be thinking, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I've read that. I know that book. What could they possibly be talking about?
I have. I've read it.
You read it, right,
have.
Carly?
I have.
Carly's also read it.
I've read it.
So, you might be thinking, what could they be talking about with this book that I haven't heard on any other podcast? But we are going to tell you all of the ins and outs about this book. Is this book valuable? It's an early Harry Potter book. I just found my copy of Chamber of Secrets in my grandma's attic. And is it worth anything? We're going to answer those questions for you.
We are.
If you take lemon juice and rub it on page 49 with a Q-tip, will it reveal a secret message?
Only if you apply heat, Erik.
Ah, okay.
Or it could damage your book. But do what you want.
Probably that.
Amazing.
There's no secret message. That was like a National Treasure
I know.
reference.
I got the reference. That's why I said you have to apply heat.
I know you know. I know
That's
you
when they
did.
get out the hair
You applied the heat.
dryers.
I know.
Ah.
I know. They get out the blow dryers.
Oh man, now we have to.
how
We
thrilling.
explained our jokes, so it's not an inside joke anymore for people that have seen National Treasure. Sorry, everyone.
Well, it was momentarily.
Yeah. Well, whatever. I knew where you were going with that.
Yes.
All right. First,
Go ahead.
why don't we get into some news?
Yes.
All right, Carly, you wrote in the notes here that you're really annoyed. JK, rolling, but it's still true. See? So what happened?
So I happened to catch a post on Reddit where somebody had posted a picture of a Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, and they wanted to know if it was anything neat. It was a Canadian hardcover with jacket, 4th print. Fine, I said all of that, exactly like that. Pretty long and not super long, but fairly long, detailed, because it's me. And the OP, he struggled with knowing what a dust jacket was at one point, told me that it was still a first edition, just not as valuable, and I don't know what I'm talking about, essentially. I got mansplained too.
Oh.
You don't mansplain to me when I've been doing this since 2009, essentially. I know a lot more than the OP does, and it made me really perturbed for so many reasons. So that was my almost 4-minute rant on Instagram.
Carly, I have a first grader that tells me he's taller than me every day, and it's clearly not true. But every day he tells me he's taller than me. And I'm like, dude, why are you even saying that? You're not even close. And if you were an over 6 foot tall first grader, I'd have a lot of questions.
Yeah, no.
I'd almost be concerned.
It's one of my biggest pet peeves is when someone says that I'm wrong when I'm absolutely not wrong. It's just a thing. So I ranted to let him know he was still wrong. I tried to reply on Reddit very nicely, and I either couldn't because I was no longer personally allowed to reply, or he turned off comments. Either way, I couldn't reply and tell him he's still quite incorrect and he doesn't know what he's talking about. So that's why I took to Instagram.
Oh.
Well, and I think that reinforces the whole point of this show is that our mission, I guess, not really a mission. That makes it sound way more dire than it actually
Our
is.
mission, if we choose to accept
our goal is to, if we choose to accept it, which pill will we swallow? No, we like talking about this stuff. We know what we're talking about. If one of us doesn't, another one of us does, or we know somebody else that does. We don't pretend to know things that we don't. I think we're very honest about things that we're not as well versed in. But I think we do a really good job of finding somebody that does know more about that. Like when we had Patricio on to talk about the Spanish books, right? Like our goal is to provide as much factual information as possible about Harry Potter books for collectors.
And it was just really
that's
he
that's
just
our
doesn't
goal.
know what a first edition is. Like, it's a Canadian first edition. That's not incorrect, but a first edition and calling it that is absolutely erroneous. And it's not even that he's wrong. It's that if he tries to go and sell it as a first edition fourth print, that's a huge problem. And I went off on that in the video.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and we talk about that all the time with things that are misrepresented or whether intentional or not, mislabeled on eBay or any other site where they're selling books. And I like to assume that people just don't know, so they label it incorrectly. But we are trying to not only protect the buyer, but also educate the seller so that, the person knows what the item actually is. We don't want things to just be falsified, whether
like
intentional
this guy,
or not.
he's bound and determined. He still has a first edition, and you could tell him it's absolutely not. Anyone could at this point, and he doesn't know what he's talking about. But that's dangerous when you're not open to, when you've asked what it is and you're still telling everyone they're wrong. When you ask for the information and then rejecting it because it's not what you wanted to hear. And I don't know, I'm just supremely annoyed with OP on Reddit. So I'm off the internet for the rest of the night. And I'm not usually that annoyed, but I don't like being mansplained to either. Like, don't do it. I'm actually not an idiot, especially about this. So anyway, we're moving on.
No. Tell us about your book mail.
I got really cool book mail. It is, so Armenian, I don't know if they're going to do all like books 1 through 5 in the Duddle so far, because we have Kibuishi hardcover, that's their hardcover for Armenian, but Zangak has also released Armenian book 1 in the Duddle. It's a soft cover, and it is a really well done soft cover. I wasn't sure when I bought it if I was originally going to keep it or add it to the collection, and now honestly I don't know, because Zangak makes just really good books, right? And it's this beautiful gold foiling, and it makes the purple pop in just the best way. Even for a soft cover, it is a beautiful soft cover. So I got that, and then I got the second Croatian translation of Chamber of Secrets as well in the same box. I have somewhere in this house a Chamber of Secrets still in a box, boxed up, put up very, very safely because I can't find it. So I just bought another one. Yeah. I mean, may as well while I can still get it for the price of a book. So I got those two things, and I'm super excited. And I have all of the U.S., which is only 1 through 3 when I say all, but all of the mass market paperback editions, like the short little paperback books.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which ones
Book
were you
1.
missing?
Yeah.
Oh, really? I was missing book 3 until a few months ago.
I found books. I don't know where I got 2 and 3. 3 I actually do know. That was a long time ago. And there's a really funny story behind that. Book 2 was probably just an eBay deal. This one came from a used bookstore about 40 miles south. Not 40 miles, about 40 minutes. Yeah. 40 minutes south of me. And I went in, and it's not a first print. I don't care about first prints with books that really aren't rare. So
yeah.
I just snagged it. It was $5.
fun.
Yeah, it was $5. And I completed the set. I didn't know if I needed it, but I thought I did. And I figured for $5 I could either gift it to someone if I didn't need it or, whatever. But turns out I do. So now I'm done with the mass market set.
Amazing.
Yeah, and these aren't hard to
No.
find necessarily.
They're
but
not hard to find, but
they're
most
fun
people,
to have especially because it's only
and they're
3.
different
really
cover
fun.
art. They're different. Well, book 3 is kind of different cover art, but 2 and 3 are 2 and 1 are definitely different cover art. So I was very excited to add those.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So yeah,
All right. So you got book 1, 2, 3. Why don't we talk a little bit more about Chamber of Secrets, which is the second book, in case you didn't know.
yes. All right. We're going to talk about the first edition US, going to be in, specific here, Chamber of Secrets, published by Scholastic in 1999. This guy right here. Arguably, so on the back, pulling up my sleeves because it's about to get serious.
Oh gosh. Okay. Let me get a Gatorade. Hold on.
If we're looking at like the advanced reader copy or the ARC of Chamber of Secrets US, it's arguably 250,000 first print copies were made. And I say arguably because there's some wiggle room there that I'm not quite sure what happened, but we'll get into that in a minute. It was published in 1999. And it actually says on the copyright page, I forget the month, but it was very, very close actually to, June 99. Published, and then Azkaban came out end of 99, I think, September, October, somewhere in there, 99. And, illustrated by Mary Grand Prey. The first edition, I don't know how I feel about this book, but anyway, we'll talk about that later. It's more aesthetics. What else do we want to talk about really with it? Because there's a lot to talk about, I guess.
There's a lot to unpack here. So we did a whole episode about rarity of American Harry Potter books.
Right.
Which I think in general determined that any American Chamber of Secrets book that's unsigned, so just the regular book, the most money you could ever get for one of these books was like around 50
75,
US
maybe
dollars.
maybe 100. If I could find like the
maybe.
pristine first state, first edition, unread, beautiful, sharp corners.
Sure, like
$100.
unread.
But
yeah.
it's still arguably 250,000 first prints of this edition were
Right.
made. That is so many. So many.
Right. That's a huge number of books. So we consistently talk about on this show the difference between a first edition and a first printing. And just the real quick recap, the edition is like what the book looks like, the text block. If everything stays the same and they just need to order more books because they sold all of those that they ordered, so they need to run another print run of that edition, the edition's the same. It's still a first edition. It is now a new printing. So we talk all the time about how you can go to Barnes & Noble in the United States and still get books 1 through 7 hardcover with the Mary Grand Prey cover art, and they're all first editions. They might be 153rd print, right? But they're still a first edition book. We talk about the value in things being the first edition, first print run of these books, but that's where, even though this is still an earlier Harry Potter book, being book 2, in terms of like quantity of these books, there were 250,000, maybe more, of these books printed in the first print run in the United States, because this book had already been printed in the United Kingdom by
98.
Bloomsbury and was doing really well.
And there was even a lawsuit over that.
Yeah, because people were trying to import the
UK,
UK book so they could read it before the book was released in the United States. So based on the success of the first Harry Potter book, there weren't many in the first print run in the United Kingdom. but then it took off and they printed more. And then they brought it over to the United States where they printed even a pretty high number in the first print run of the first book. By the time we got to Chamber of Secrets in the United States,
it was
250,000 is a gigantic number, right? They already knew that if we make this many books, they will sell. We will make it worthwhile to print this many books and ship them to distributors and bookstores across the U.S. And that only grew, right? They kept printing more of book 2. Every print run of Harry Potter in any country has only increased by the book. So the higher the book number is, the more the initial print run was. So what we're trying to say here, I guess, or what I'm trying to say is that even the most valuable unsigned copy of Chamber of Secrets in the United States, like Carly said, maybe an unread mint condition, $100 US. Nothing more than that. Never. There's nothing rare about typos
and
or
we'll get into
misprints.
that.
And
Yeah,
Carly's
we're gonna get
go into that right now. But I think really the only book 1 through 7 that's worth money in the United States is first print, first edition, Sorcerer's Stone. If we're just talking mainland 1 through 7, and that's still not worth as much as books in the UK by Bloomsbury.
And I feel like
so American books, they just made so much more of them because our country is huge, you guys. There's 330 million people. They know they're going to be able to sell books here. And they knew that even from, Sorcerer's Stone first print, but Chamber of Secrets first print. And by the time we got to Deathly Hallows, it was in the millions,
like
right? The
12 million or something, or 3. It was millions. I forget the exact number. It was a lot. So what I was going to say when I accidentally interrupted Eric is that sometimes I feel like there's a little bit of confusion just because a lot of people know that the UK, Bloomsbury UK first edition, first print books, the hardcover, Chamber of Secrets that's where the value is. We have stressed that. Lots of people have stressed that. Websites, dealers, we've all stressed that. So I think when they see the US books, they assume it's a similar thing. And the print numbers were just wildly different, right? Because again, Chamber of Secrets came out in 98 in UK. So the first edition, the print run even over there was much smaller for several different reasons. US had time, and Arthur Levine planned for success from, honestly, Sorcerer's Stone on, because even that print run, 35,000 copies for an initial print run from an unknown author of a book that we don't know, that's a lot. That's a lot. To put it into perspective, like a lot of initial first 1,500 copies, something like that, not 35,000. And so they've planned for success from book 1 on. So anyway, they printed a lot, and it's just not going to be a book that's going to be worth a lot of money unless it's signed, like Erik has said. It's a nice book. It's fun to have, but valuable, not really. But moving on to typos, you'll see a lot of people, especially on eBay and in Facebook, where they're like, I have this book and it's got this, because Sorcerer's Stone and the initial however many prints was misspelled. Sorcerer, they misspelled it with an OR instead of an ER on the also by page.
Yeah, in like
also by page on Sorcerer's Stone.
Yeah, like right away in the beginning of the book.
So and they're like, oh, it's a typo. Guys, I was at the bookstore, used bookstore yesterday. That's where I got my, little mass market Sorcerer's Stone book. Yay. And they had 6 different used Chamber of Secrets, all varying prints, with the latest one being a 30th print. And up to the 30th print, I saw that typo. So 1 through 30 had the typo. First print through 30th print. So we know 250,000 books probably had the typo. Then you add on all in the first print alone. That's first print. Then you add subsequent or following prints. It could be hundreds of thousands, more than we already had hundreds of thousands of books with the first print. So it could be even at close to 1 million books now that have this typo. It adds no value. It doesn't even help identify. Well, and it doesn't even help identify the first print like you see some typos do with like the Philosopher's Stone first print, first edition. It does nothing. It's just misspelled. It is not cool. Most first editions have it. I say most. Most early print first editions have it.
To me, I can't believe, honestly, they made it to 30 printings and nobody caught that error.
Yeah.
Like, come on. And granted, it's a page that nobody reads, right? Nobody reads the also by section, especially when it's book 2 of an author that has only written one prior book. You know what she's written. It's not like she's written some other book that you're like, oh, here's a book about some ducks having a party in their pond. No, she's written one book, and this is the sequel, so it's there. But Carly, I think something that is kind of exciting, and it's not necessarily valuable, but there are differences in the jacket of this book, like subtle differences that make the earlier printings distinguishable from the later printings.
Not even just the jacket.
On the shelf, which is cool.
There are arguably 3 states of the first print book, which is why I say there's arguably 250,000 first prints. Okay. I have all 3 because I'm that guy. But the first state, it looks like most people know. That's the one that when everyone talks about the first print, first edition U.S. Chamber of Secrets, this is the one everybody knows. It's the Mary Grand Pré cover art, the raised silver foiling, right? We don't have a 2 on the spine. It says just rolling, no number 2. And that's that. That's the jacket. The price is $17.95. We know that from the back barcode, and it's also on the inside jacket flat, $17.95. 1 through 10 number line. Sorcerer's Stone is misspelled like all of them. And importantly, there's also no 2 on the jacket or on the book spine, right? There's no 2 on the book spine. It's just rolling, nothing. So then we have the second state. Which one do I have here? And then we have the second state. And the second state is, make sure that what are you doing?
I have 2 of these, actually. I have one in mint unread condition.
Oh, nice.
With this plastic.
It's a cool book you've got. So the second state, we great. Have a few changes. It's still a $17.95 price, raised silver foiling, but on the jacket, let me make sure I've got the right book. On the jacket, we have a 2. Okay. We also have a 2 on the book spine. And it's a 1 through 10 number line. I'm looking at a 1 through 10 number line. So that's the second state. And Sorcerer's Stone is still misspelled, even in the second state. And I say arguably 3 states because we see that same book, 2 on the spine, 1 through 10 number line, and a 1995 jacket. So there's some initial thought that maybe there is jacket marrying, which is possible. I've seen enough of these around that it looks like at some point they put this first print, like the publisher, put this first print in a 1995 jacket. So arguably 3 states. I've seen, they're not super common. States 2 and 3 aren't super common, but I've seen enough of them that at some point I think that something hinky happened and this first print was released with a 2 on the spine and a 1995 dust jacket. So, and Sorcerer's Stone is still misspelled in that one. So I'm not sure. I've tried to actually look at a timeline of things because I don't know. I mean, the arguably third state, if that's indeed what it is, to be released with the 1995 dust jacket with the 2 on the spine, that would have to come later in the print history, correct? So did they just start over again with the number line when they did that? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't understand, because I can kind of see where they're like, oh, well, this is going to be a big deal, and then quickly into print run, they add a 2 on the spine and move on, and that's your second state. But the third state, that's weird because that's a price change, if that's indeed what it is. And
well, and I think a pause for book collector lingo. Jacket marrying is when you take a book that doesn't have a dust jacket or does, and it's damaged, and you pair it with a better condition jacket so that you have a good condition book with hardcover boards underneath and a good condition jacket. So you're taking like two things from different books and making them one.
Right.
That weren't originally together, but now they can be. So oftentimes it's done in books that should be the same. Like if you have a first print, first edition Sorcerer's Stone, but your jacket's damaged and you're able to get a first print, first edition jacket from another book, you can put them together and essentially it's the same thing. Nobody would ever know the difference. For collector purposes, it doesn't matter because it's the right thing that match up. But in some cases, people jacket marry books that don't match up. So you could get like Carly was saying, a jacket for Chamber of Secrets that doesn't have the year 2 on the spine, but someone could have married that with a book that is a 64th print, which we know that book does have the year 2 on the spine of that jacket and a different price. Right. So the book and the jacket don't necessarily go together in terms of the period of time in which they were produced. They work fine if you're just putting it on a shelf because you want the book with a jacket. Great, but
like
in terms
purposes.
Of like authenticity or it totally ruins the whole shabam because it's not the actual jacket that goes on the book, or it's not the actual book that should go under the jacket.
And interestingly, all of these like first dates, all of these first prints, they all say the same thing, June 1999. So it's not like, we see a June 1999 and then an October 1999. The copyright page says the same. So it doesn't really help us in the timeline of trying to figure out when these things were printed. Because I'm curious, did they start over? And if they did, how many second prints are running around? How many? And I'm guessing of the 250,000 that were considered to be for, planned first prints on the ARC, 3 states of them, I'm pretty sure, are arguably 3 states, but for sure 2 weren't considered in those 250, I don't think. So I'm pretty sure the initial print run is 250,000 without, of the first print without the one on the spine. And then they realized at some point, I don't know when, we're going to do this again with a 2 on the spine and then just throw it back out there. And we don't know how many of those were made. So arguably there's a lot more than 250 of these first prints running around, with the first state being the most common, second state being the second, you don't see them super often. And then the third state being arguably in existence, because it could still be something where somebody put a 1995 jacket on the book. But I've seen enough of them around now that I actually think it could be a thing.
Well, and it very well could be. But I think what also needs to be pointed out is that let's say there's only 1,000 of those that have been made. There isn't a demand that I've seen for that edition for that book.
Most people don't even know it's a thing.
If you're asking $10,000 for this first edition, third state variation of the first printing Chamber of Secrets, there isn't a collector demand for that.
It's like
even if it is a rare item, and we see this all the time with translations. We know that there are translations that are rarer than some of the UK English Harry Potter prints. Like there are less Asturian books than there are first print, first edition Harry Potter books from the UK. But that book doesn't sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars like the UK one does. Just because something is rarer or there are fewer of them doesn't necessarily mean the price should match that.
Because there's not a demand.
That's the market, right? There's not a demand.
Another really good example that we see actually in the UK books. There is a first state Order of the Phoenix, UK, Bloomsbury, UK. It's on the first page of the first chapter. The word boy is truncated. It's B-O instead of boy. It's like the middle bottom far right corner, and the Y is missing. I have one because it's cool to have. I didn't pay extra for it, however, because it's not something that's in demand by collectors. So the price itself, I paid what I would pay for a first print Order of the Phoenix, which was, I think, £15 at the time.
Right. Well, and everybody in the United Kingdom that was waiting for the midnight release of that book in a store, or they pre-ordered it from a bookstore or from a online seller.
Well, we don't know if we got. We
Mm-hmm.
don't know because we don't. It's something that's not even really looked for. So it could have been something that was found before it was released, and then they made the second state like before the book was released, and majority of people got those. We don't know because it's not something people watch. Because no,
people don't watch it, but there are a lot of them. It's not like there's three.
And
right? They would have made a significant amount of these, if not all of them, in that first day release. They would have made thousands of them. It's not like they printed one book and someone's like,
they forgot the why.
We got to redo this. But we're still gonna send this one copy out to sell anyway. Like, no,
we see
they caught it
right.
like tons of books later, and they're like, well, I guess it's too late. We're gonna sell these.
It's like the Ancestor error
fine,
in I think Chamber of Secrets as well, where it's Ancestor instead of Descendant or whatever, and they're like a lot of books are gonna say that, and you see errors like like the first state Order of the Phoenix where they missed the Y, mattering in like the first state Wizard of Oz, first state, first print, first edition on like page 100, which I just made up. There's a word that's misspelled. That's how you can tell the first state is that word. That's where that gets the value. It's not because the word is misspelled. It's because it indicates a really rare book. That's when errors like that matter. This isn't a really rare book. It's not in demand. The Order of the Phoenix won't be anything cool because of that. But, Wizard of Oz, first state, first print is.
But it's cool to us.
It's really cool. But I'm just saying, like, that's the example. That's when errors like that matter, is when it's helping identify a book that's in demand, an already rare book, things like that. Because it's what's there. But they don't add value because it's there. That's not what adds the value.
Yeah, I was going to say, cool doesn't mean valuable. Like, we just like them because they're cool.
Yeah, like they're fun to have.
Cool is
I
cool.
have a misprinted Sorcerer's Stone going back to that. It's bound upside down. The jacket's also misprinted. Like, it's a whopper of a book. It was probably at the tail end of the first print run. I would say it's probably valued less than any of the first prints because it's not perfect. People aren't going to pay that. So going back to Chamber of Secrets, finding a Chamber of Secrets first print, first edition, first date to be that technical, without the Sorcerer's Stone misspelling, I would actually be a lot more leery of, because it would probably be like, what happened? They should all have that. But many, many hundreds of thousands of books are going to have that, possibly millions. So it doesn't add value. I sadly saw one of those sell. It was a 28th print, maybe. It was a later print run of Sorcerer's Stone, Chamber of Secrets US, first edition, with the rare typo, sell for like $2,500 because of that. On eBay.
Unfortunate. Well, and that's just it, is that if someone does buy one for an overpriced amount of money, that people all of a sudden assume like, oh, this is the value of it, which no, that was an error that someone made.
An outlier.
I think an outlier. I think we could end this segment by reiterating US books in general. 99% of the books that you have at your house from the United States by Scholastic are not worth more than the amount of money that you bought them for initially. They're worth less. That doesn't mean they're not great to have. We love collecting them. There are some really cool ones in the US, but they're just not as
I would say first print
as
Azkaban maybe $50 books. If it's pristine. But it's not. Right, but it's again, not anything to quit your job.
It's $50.
You don't quit your job over it.
No, it's not 120,000 pounds that some people are selling books for in the UK. It's not going to pay for your vacation to somewhere. It might pay for your tank of gas to drive to McDonald's 2 cities away instead of your closest McDonald's. But again, the US books just are not. They do not hold the same value as the UK books or the earlier prints, just because of how many they have. So unless your book is signed, it's great to have. You're not going to really find a diamond in the rough.
Yeah, not here.
That will change your life if you find
not here.
Not here, unfortunately. But we still like talking about these books, and we like talking about them so much that we're going to keep talking about this book in our next segment.
Yay! Because, Eric.
Because our translation of the show is the American Harry Potter Chamber of Secrets, published by Scholastic, which is technically a transliteration of the original English version from the United Kingdom, published by Bloomsbury. So this book still does have a lot of, I guess, words that were changed in terms of ease for American readers. So the common example you can point out to are the car parts. Instead of the boot and the bonnet, we have the trunk and the hood of the car, or the hood and the trunk, I guess, respectively. So there are still terms that you can tell have been changed. That gradually decreased as the books went on, but still very prevalent here in the American Chamber of Secrets. This book, like Carly said, came out in the United States in June 1999. Originally came out in 1998 in the United Kingdom, so it was later here. So for the early adopters, they either had to wait for this one, or they had to import one from the United Kingdom, which, like Carly mentioned, again, led to some lawsuits, which in turn led to simultaneous releases of future Harry Potter books.
By book 4.
By book 4. So by book 4, all the books came out at the same time in the US, UK, Canada, Australia, as well as some of the countries that were able to publish a translation really early on. But like most other translations, the translations usually came later, unfortunately. So on a scale from 1 to 10, or 1 to 5, of how hard is it to get this book?
Well, there were 6 of them in my used
0.
bookstore, so it's not.
Yeah, 0. You can go to any used bookstore and get an older print of this book in hardcover. You can go to a bookstore and get a new copy of this book. It will be the same. Unless you really want that spine without the 2, which is pretty cool to have if you collect Harry Potter books. If so, you can find them. They're not that expensive. They shouldn't be that expensive. If you're paying more than $50, more than $100 maybe for a pristine copy of this book, first state, first edition, you're paying too much. So not hard to find at all.
No.
We talk all the time about you should be able to buy a 1 through 7 used hardcover set of US books for under $100.
Pretty easily.
It's not expensive. Pretty easily. So I guess in terms of value, the price of a new book, otherwise, like I said, pristine copy, $100 max maybe.
If it's the first print, yes.
First print, yep. So let's go through this. I know we've done a couple other Scholastic US books.
Been a while
before, so I'm curious. It's been a while though, so yeah, I'm curious to see how this stacks up. So let's smell it.
Which one am I going to smell?
Oh, I smelled page 33 from chapter 3.
I'm in my
on
third
page
state.
110.
I'm 146 of the third state, the arguable third state. Melanie's all up in
Mine
there.
smells so good though.
You know what it is I have a newer copy because my original copy, I remember like losing the dust jacket like as a kid. So I don't even know where my original copy is or what state it is, or if it's probably at my parents' house somewhere. So I just have this like repurchased copy and it's brand new and I haven't cracked the spine. So I like literally have to let it like come right, like I have to get in there.
Oh yeah.
You know, I don't know. I'd give it an acceptable. I feel like it's nothing crazy. But I think that that's also because it's not the book that I like read as a kid. I feel like if it had that like wear to it, that it had been read, whatever, I feel like it would almost smell better. But I'll just give it an acceptable.
Yeah.
I'm giving mine an E. I really like the smell of this book for some reason.
Mine's acceptable.
Maybe it is the nostalgia. I can't pinpoint it. So 2 A's and an E. All right. The next category is the size and proportions. It's, to me, outstanding. We've said this countless times. The American Scholastic hardcover Harry Potter books, all of them to me are outstanding. The size and proportions of them are just perfect. I think they're big books. They're not huge like Kamai, but they are big books. They're
sturdy.
They are sturdy books. They feel so great, and I don't want to get into feel in your hand yet, but in terms of just how big they are and how sturdy they are, that's the size and proportions that's making you enjoy that aspect of the book. So I'm giving that an O.
Same. O for me.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything that you said. I feel like it is the perfect size book. Outstanding.
Oh, fantastic. So then how it feels in your hand, to me, the U.S. jackets are great. The boards are thick. It's sturdy. It feels good reading it at the first page, the middle, the last page. Like the way the spine cracks, it kind of has that tunnel vision, like it bends with the spine. So it still feels really good no matter what page you're on. It's not cumbersome to read. I'm also giving it an outstanding. I think it feels awesome to read. And we have all read these books as our first experience, so we have that nostalgia factor as well. But it still doesn't detract from the fact that this is a really, really great book to read. It just feels great.
I would say, like it's an O for me. I love how it feels in my hand.
Yeah. I'm like a woman of few words today.
Thanks, Melanie.
I'm sorry. You guys were just so in it with the main segment. So I was just listening very intently. Then realized that my mic was muted for a good chunk. So my mm-hms and yes might not be there. No, for how this book feels in my hand.
We can have Tommy, our editor, just splice in a soundbite of that over and over.
Yeah. That'd be really funny.
I agree.
Uh-huh. Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
But yeah, the book feels great in your hands. I would give it an outstanding also. It's just the nostalgia of it. And also I'll never get over the the leathery texture of these jackets and how the more you read them, the softer they get. So similarly to the leather. So I absolutely love that. And I feel like there are no other jackets in the world like that when it comes to our books. So absolutely love it. Yeah.
Well, why don't you start our next one about quality, Melanie?
Quality? I mean, honestly, I feel like the US books are always made really good. I would give it, I'd give it an outstanding. This one it's obviously a brand new copy. And I feel as they get read, sometimes the jackets tend to rip or you might have issues with it over time, especially if you're reading it. But when you get one of these books brand new, they are gorgeous and so well done. So I would give it an outstanding for quality.
I would give it an outstanding for quality as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would give it an outstanding for quality as well. Yeah. Cover art or interpretation of cover art. Now remember, the original cover art for this book was Harry and Ron in the car flying to Hogwarts. So this book took a different approach. Mary Grand Pré chose to show Harry it's kind of a big spoiler once you've read the book. It's the chamber. There's a snake in there, so it's a snake. He's holding on to Fox's tail, and they're flying out of the chamber after he has saved Ron, or Ginny, and Ron's with him because Hermione's obviously not, because she's in the hospital wing.
And he has the sword of Gryffindor.
Yeah, it takes place he does have the sword of Gryffindor, and he's wearing a cape for whatever reason, because heroes wear capes. That's why. I don't know. Like, I never really put together that it was a spoiler of the book, you know, despite the fact that there are tons of snakes all over the cover and back cover. And, you know, if you open up the little flaps that continues on, there's a little ominous eye on the flap on the inside. But I always liked the colors of this cover. I don't remember how I ranked it in our ranking of U.S. cover arts, but I do remember when I read this book after reading Sorcerer's Stone that I thought it was very cool that the Harry Potter font was a different color. It was silver on this book. It was gold on the first book. And that was the first time that we're like, hey, they're going to change this on every book. And obviously we got, you know, different colors in books 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And they're all different in the US, not the case in the UK. So that to me was really cool. And I found that the silver of the Harry Potter really stood out against the red of the phoenix feathers. And that to me was just kind of like the focal point of my attention on the cover. But in general, not one of my favorite covers. It's got a lot going on, but I give it an exceeds expectations because I think it works for some reason. Like the amount going on, it seems simple, like upon first glance, but there's more detail to it. So that's I'm giving it an exceeds just because of that. That was very rambly.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I didn't know that was Fox until a few years ago. I thought it was a curtain, and I could never figure out why she had drawn Harry pulling on a red curtain. Also, this is my absolute least favorite Harry Potter book cover, so I'm gonna have to say it's like dreadful. I really dislike everything about it. Like, I don't like red anyway. Like, I don't like red as a color in my daily life. I don't like red. I don't like anything about it. It doesn't do anything for me. And if it weren't a part of the series, I'd probably never read the book because of the cover.
I kind of wish there was more red, honestly.
I mean, I'm going to give mine an exceeds expectations because what I do like about this, and I like this about most of Mary Grand Pre's covers, is that I love the wraparound image of it. And I love that, like, okay, so you just see Harry with Fox on the front because obviously it's a Harry Potter book, makes sense. But like you look at the spine, okay, we see more of this color palette, and then you see Ron and Ginny like on the back cover, and then you realize when you open it up, like, oh my god, it's all one thing. Like they're all holding on to Fox, and like, yeah, that's a cool part of the scene where like phoenixes are incredibly strong and you could just hold on to their tail and they can carry hundreds of pounds, and like that's so cool. I don't know. I just think that that's like a cool way. I don't know. The thing is I feel like for Chamber of Secrets, you either have a cover with Fox on it or you have a cover with the Blue Ford Anglia. And
car.
like,
Yeah.
I don't know what's better, but I like them both. I'd give it an exceeds expectations. I like it.
But that's why we like when like new covers come out. There's one with the Whomping Willow on it, right? You're like, oh hey, there's a little bit of
different
of a difference there. That's cool. So
or the burrow where they put the burrow
like
on
said,
there. Like that's a fun one.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That's a fun one too. X Factor. I think I already said mine. I think my X Factor is I love the silver foiling put on top of the red phoenix feathers. I really do like that. And even though this book doesn't have the number 2 on the spine, I really like when they do add that because I like the silver 2 on the red on the spine as well. So I think that's my X Factor. Red and silver.
Mine, I love actually the color of the blue boards with the green spine cloth with the silver lettering on the actual boards. I love those colors together. Green is my favorite color, followed very closely by blue, and I love silver everything. So like they had me hooked at that.
My X Factor is probably what I was saying before about like the leathery texture of the covers, and I guess that I don't know, maybe it would be different for books 1 through 7. Like I would come up with something different, but like in general, I do love that about the U.S. American books. I love that it feels like a leather book that just gets softer over time. Like I think that that's so cool, so unique. And that's my favorite. That's my X Factor.
Good X Factor.
It really is like an X factor for the series in our country, right? Like that separates the books that we grew up with the other countries' books that they grew up with. Like that's just really cool that
the covers are that texture.
you know, like the covers are that texture. It's really it's just a good book to read.
And it's a visible texture. Like I can tell when I'm looking at
hold.
like just very easily tell when I'm looking at a book club versus a trade edition, which is this edition here. One of the other things it's called as a trade is you can see the raised bumps from the texture in the photos. And I can clubs, there's a few book clubs that have a little bit of texture, but not the same kind of texture. And it just feels so good on the hands.
It's an amazing book. And if you want to hear us talk about more amazing books, you can tune into some of our other episodes of Dialogue Alley Podcast, or you can visit us on other social media platforms. You could find Carly at All the Pretty Books. You can find Erik at Nocturne Erik, and I'm on Instagram at the Harry Potter Collection. And you can find all sorts of stuff about all these books that we talk about on Dialogue Alley at Dialogue Alley Podcast on Instagram. You can also check out some of our websites, dialoguealley.com. We're like trying to update, revamp, add stuff to it. It's a slow and steady process. We all have daytime jobs and life jobs and lots to do and lots going on. So, children. That's my life job.
And children.
You know, it's a 24-hour job. So we try to squeeze in a little website editing here and there. So it's slow and steady, you know, but we do, you know, it's another way of getting in contact with us. We've got like a little contact form right on our page. You can also email us, which is dialoguealleypodcast@gmail.com. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. I'm on TikTok. And you can just listen to this podcast anywhere you want. And if you're listening to us and you're like, oh my God, this podcast is so cool. I have Harry Potter books. My aunt brought me back a Harry Potter book from Germany when she visited there last week. And I'm really interested in this now. You could listen to our other episodes, and you could even support us on Patreon if you want a little bit extra. We have a Discord where we have a lot of information, resources, ways that you can get these books, websites that you can find, all these foreign websites that I forget about often, but like you could just translate the website and it'll bring you to where these books are. It's pretty cool. But our Discord is an awesome resource. A lot of cool people talking about loving these books as much as we do, which is really neat. You could also like listen to our episode live. You could join us in a little pre-show chat. We're fun. There's also bonus episodes that come out. Erik's going bonus. So it's really cool.
Oh, that's what I'm doing. You're right.
Yeah, I knew. I read your lips. Yeah, we do. It's just really cool. So if you want to support us on Patreon, that's www.patreon.com/dialoguealley. But for now, it's all we have time for. So we are going to walk back through the archway and into our daily lives, and we will catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.